Big round of applause for Jeremy. Thanks. So I've had a career in TA, and I've been part of the RL 100. I'm currently an advisor to the recruitment events company that runs the RL 100 and RecFest. And in my time, I've spent my entire career moaning about how we measure talent acquisition. And we're going to talk today about how we're going to try and make an industry-changing attempt to measure TA differently and benchmark it. Jeremy, would you like to introduce yourself?
So my name's Jeremy. So first of all, welcome to RecFest. Welcome to Nebworth. I live 15, 20 minutes down the road, so I'm eternally grateful for Jamie bringing the event here just for me. So yeah, welcome to RecFest. Just from the years we've been doing it, please enjoy, get out there, go to all the talks. So my background, believe it or not, I don't look old enough. I'm definitely not old enough to be a grandparent just yet. 25 years in talent acquisition. Of that, I've spent just over half my time specialising within talent TA data. Culminated, that's one word for describing it, just under 3 years at Citibank. I built their first global talent acquisition reporting platform for EMEA. That was subsequently adopted globally. 10,000 hires, 7 million applicants. Sorry, 10,000 hires a month, 7 million applicants a year across some really, really fantastic locations, really intriguing businesses. Now, whilst I was at Citi, we had, well, I get this at home as well. I get opinion. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and anyone with a teenage daughter will know a teenager's opinion, right? At Citi, we had the CEO and the HRO's opinion of talent acquisition. And their opinion was, we need to invest in this, reduce headcount here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we didn't have any real data to push back. We could benchmark, we could talk about historic performance, et cetera, et cetera. And this sort of reawoke something that's, I've had a sort of 25-year itch. And that is to answer the simple question of, what does good look like in TA? You go into an organisation, they talk about reducing this, increasing that, decreasing this, et cetera, organisations go and invest millions of pounds per annum into the likes of LinkedIn, et cetera, but actually, are they being successful at what they do? So what we're doing is we're embarking on a project to basically come up with the first benchmarking platform for talent acquisition professionals. The basic concept that sits behind it is we take raw data. We take the same raw data from every single organisation. We then create standardised metrics so you can compare apples with apples. We then play back where you are against the market average, upper quartile, lower quartile, best in class, least in class. Only you see your data. And from that, you guys will be able to sit there and actually have that conversation with the CEO, HRO, and go, actually, do you know what? Compared to the market, why is my budget in the lower quartile? Et cetera. So hopefully we can add some value and go on a journey. But I'm going to hand over to Adrian, who's going to sort of take you through the beginning as where we're going.
Okay, so I've got quite close links to government, and I was speaking to government earlier this year about TA metrics and how the industry can't really measure itself very well. And I had to sort of give some examples. I'm going to take you through a really basic reason why we're having problems with metrics. But we're calling this Project Impact. It's jointly led by Jeremy and the RL 100 resourcing leaders. And its aim, as I say, is to change the industry's way of looking at TA metrics. So I'm going to explain it. So just taking three numbers. They can be quite confusing. I mean, there's 150, 100, and 5, and I'm going to do something with them. I'm going to give you three different equations using those same three numbers. And what I'd like you to tell me is which answer is the correct one. Same three numbers. Sometimes we've done the order of them changes, but the same three numbers. Which is the right answer? Now, you've seen these on Facebook a lot, I think, if you see these little quizzes they put up, and And it says there's only one right answer, and there's about 6 trillion people all disagreeing as to what the answer is. But if you have a set of rules, now some people call this PEDMAS, PODMAS, BAMDAS, but basically B is brackets, O is orders, D is division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. If you do the equation using standardized, accepted mathematical practice worldwide, you only get the middle answer. So you have to do the multiplication before you do the addition, because that's what BODMAS says. You do it in the order. So you multiply 150 by 5 and then add 100. That's your answer. There is no other answer that's recognized in the mathematical world. Now, people will argue till the cows come home about this, but that is a standardized. So anybody anywhere in the world looking at these 3 equations will pick the middle one if they're using standardized interpretation. Though let's do it in TA speak. So company A, time to hire. Company A reports that their time to hire is 45 days. Company B reports their time to hire is 25 days. Who thinks company A is the faster at hiring? Shout out. Or who thinks company B? Shout A or B. Who's the faster at hiring? B.
B.
I knew you were going to say that. So there's a recruitment process. There's company A's 45 days. They're measuring it from the requisition being open to the person starting. There's company B's. They're measuring it from the advert date through to the offer. So there's your 45 and 25. But what about the bits either side? If it was standardized, company B would be reporting over 60 days. Now who's the quickest? Who's got the best time to hire? Company A. And we're doing this time, and everybody says time to hire, cost per hire, quality. These are the measures that we throw around with abandonment, but we're not standardized. So you can't compare them. And I get people writing to me all the time saying, Adrian, from your time in government, what's the average time to hire in the public sector, or the average time to hire in banking when I was in RBS? And even these two, I've got a question mark. Where's the bit from when the person resigned or when they restructured and they had the vacancies? So even these 2 answers, so we need to work on standardization. And what I'm going to do is this video, it's only 2 minutes, but you're going to see this on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and we're going to play a lot of this over the summer to explain what we're explaining to you next in terms of our attempt to change the industry and standardize our data.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrian Thomas, and I'm excited to introduce a groundbreaking initiative that will transform how we demonstrate the commercial value of talent acquisition. Right now, every TA leader is fighting the same battle, proving return on investment to the C-suite without standardized data. We're all reinventing the wheel, struggling to move beyond traditional metrics like time to hire, cost per hire, and finding it difficult to establish value-based measures. That can change. Through the RL100's Project Impact initiative, we're creating the first standardized suite of TA measures that will become the benchmark for our industry. At the heart of this is our pinnacle metric, vacancy gap, a ratio that's simple but powerful, a measure that tracks current open vacancies against positions filled. Why? Because if you don't actually fill the vacancy, all other metrics are just vanity measures. Supporting this will be 9 complementary metrics that provide the diagnostic insight you need, from revenue impact, first-year attrition, to source and quality of hire, together with recruiting efficiency, all standardized, so you can benchmark across organizations and geographies. This isn't just about better data, it's about positioning TA as a recognized value creator, speaking the language of the organization, of finance, of operations, and driving mature conversations with your business about strategic impact. We're looking for pioneering organizations to join our steering group in 2025 Together, we'll establish the definitions, test the alignments, and create the benchmarks that will elevate our entire profession. The future of talent acquisition measurement starts here. Let's lead the way together. Get in touch today.
Okay, so that's a call to action that you hopefully, if you're online through the summer, you'll see a number of times. But we mentioned there a pinnacle measure. Well, the pinnacle measure will go into a little bit more detail with the complementary measures in a second. But I just wanted to validate, was it worth our time doing all of this? Because I've been invited to speak in Parliament in November to explain why we want to have standardised data in our industry and what benefit it will be and why should government be involved. So I went out to the RL 100 earlier this week, Monday and Tuesday, and asked them about metrics. 94% said they cannot benchmark their data, or it is so fragmented it's meaningless. 94% of people not using the data in a way that they would like to. This is a huge own goal at the moment for the industry. And if we can get to the point where 94% are using standardized data to argue their case in their companies, to prove their efficiency, to prove their value to that organization, then we stop being a cost center and being a value creator. And we've talked about this, I've talked about this for 30 years, and it's been more moaning than doing. This is the doing bit. So let's talk about the actual metrics.
So no pressure on us to get it right, yeah?
Vacancy gap. We mentioned vacancy gap in that video, and we've chosen this as the pinnacle measure because if you don't actually fill the roles that you're recruiting for, then why measure anything else? If your cost of hire is high but you haven't filled the role, you're going to spend more if the role is necessary. But what this will tell us is if you're not reducing your vacancy gap month on month, that there's something else wrong with the process. It's your advertising, it's your EVP, or it's your approach, the way you're using partners. So it isn't about the vacancy gap as the driving metric, it's the pinnacle measure that everything else must align to. Now, if you are keeping your vacancy gap constant, then there could be some reasons for that, and we understand that as well, and that's going to be captured. It could be that you're an expanding organisation, so as fast as you're filling, new roles are being created. Or it could be the other. It could be as fast as you're filling, people are leaving you, and you've got a retention issue. So this is a pinnacle measure that will lead you down some solution routes. I'm going to hand over to Jeremy to talk about those complementary measures that will enable you to use the tool in a more influencing diagnostic way.
So what we realise is there's no one single right measure for any organisation. Different organisations have different driving factors. So for example, when I was at City, time to hire, the regulator decided on a number and they told us this is the number you have to hit. So we lived or died by time to hire. We might have changed the way we measured it, we might have changed a few bits in the process to enable us to get there, but ultimately one size does not fit all. What I'm also really keen on with this project is we start to talk in a commercial language. So for example, I know TA does not make the decision to make a hire, however we're ultimately responsible for that. If you take your average salary that you pay an employee, okay, you times that by the amount of hires you make per year, that is how much cash expenditure TA is responsible for. Now, what we're seeing in most organisations is finance view TA as a budget. Now, finance. Anyone here work in finance? I've got to be careful here what I say. Right. Groundhog Day finance, right? They do the same thing year in, year out, year in, year out. I've worked in organisations where we sat down with finance and we've gone, look, we're TA, we fully appreciate you're up there with the gods, we're down here somewhere, right? We've got a little sideline project that we'd like to get you guys involved in. Can you help us? Because we know you're great and hopefully some of your magic will, pixie dust will fall on us. Their eyes light up because it's something new for them. You then start to take them through the process of understanding the spend impact that TA has, but also, Mr. Finance, if we hire people who perform 10% better than our average, what's that going to do to our bottom line project? Bottom line number? Their eyes light up. Also, if we start to put a monetary value on, for example, first 12 months attrition, then we can go back to the line managers and really start to have those commercial conversations with them. So what we want to do is we want to start with something that is right for everyone. Now, I know full well, if you go out of this tent, 99.9% of what you're going to see is AI. Okay? It's changing the world, apparently, right? I haven't really seen anything in TA that's made me go, oh my God, they got it sussed, right? I mean, you look at how Parse technology that Daxter was doing 20 years ago, and people are now claiming they're using AI to do that. But it's coming. But what that also means is that all of those historic data points that you guys have got, where what does good look like, all of that landscape is changing really, really quickly. So I think from a timing perspective, hopefully what we're going to be able to create here lands and adds value to you guys. Now, what you can see is complementary metrics. My view is, if you have that one slide that's going in front of the CEO, you've got one slide going in front of the CEO, you've probably got 30 seconds. Chances are your slide number 57 on a 437 slide deck at City. If a slide deck had less than 300 slides, it wasn't a proper slide deck, right? So you've got that one chance to capture their attention. But also on a daily basis or weekly basis, when you pull your reports, if you can just look at a very, very small 1 or 2 measures, and that tells you the direction of travel of your function, it's going to hopefully make your lives a lot easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these complementary metrics. Now, we don't know if these are right. This is me taking 15 years of experience, speaking to an awful lot of people across the market, and we're putting this down as a starting point. So these may change over time once we understand what you guys are looking for. So hopefully all of those make sense. Like I said, we've got the revenue impact, first year attrition, average interviews per role, time to hire, time to start, total revenue impact for new hires. So that basically is your time to hire. Take your average number of employees, average revenue per employee, divide that by 220, revenue per employee per day. From that, you can then work out the commercial impact of a vacancy being open. You times that by your total amount of open vacancies, and suddenly that number is much, much greater than your TA budget. So when you go to your business and say, I need more money, why do you need that? Because X, Y, Z, this is the return on investment we can deliver. Declined offers, headcount percentage, and then source of higher efficiency. I've worked with a number of organisations who have signed on the bottom line multi-million pound deals with the likes of LinkedIn and other providers. And my first question is, how are we going to measure success? You get that blank look. You go to the supplier. How are we going to measure success? You get that blank look. What we're going to be able to do is give you guys an idea, an indication. Are you getting value from the likes of LinkedIn based upon your volumes, your attritions, and your cost per hire off those individual channels? So what we want to do is work with the community. We're going to go out there, as I said, we're going to get we're going to take standard data points. We're going to take your TA data. We're then going to take some HR data, i.e. the attrition data, and then we're going to take some finance data. We've designed it and we've broken it down so it should be 3 reports that you can run off on an annual basis, on a monthly basis. Once we're past beta and we know what good looks like, we'll then start to do the integration, all that sexy work behind the scenes, so they magically land on your desks on a monthly basis. Hopefully, touch wood, we can go. As I said, we can go on a journey. It is a journey. We're not going to get it right from the beginning, and we're going to be relying on your help as we go. Does all that make sense? I've run through it quite quickly because I'm just taking that you guys are TA experts, right? Any questions on that? Yes. What? So is there
any reason why we haven't brought cost per hire in as a metric?
We can have cost per hire. It's one of the metrics. So basically what I've got is I've got a suite of about 25, 26 dashboards And from those, we pulled these 9. But yeah, if we find, for example, that cost per hire is a direct metric that people really want to delve into and they feel that's an important metric, yes, we can bring that to the forefront. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here, going out to as many organisations as possible and saying what's important.
Yeah. So I use time to hire as an example of why it's not standardised. An example for cost per hire would be, I remember many years ago, RBS, before it became NatWest Group, they had a data analyst, a brilliant guy, who did a huge analysis of recruitment cost. And that was from the cost that was incurred when a person left, right through the hiring process, and the cost of the individual joining, and the opportunity lost until that person was high performing. So it wasn't just a part of the recruitment process, it was before and after all the onboarding stuff as well. And they calculated that, roughly speaking, it was 110% of an annual salary. It would be a good guide. So let's just take an annual salary of £30,000. That would be, the cost per hire would be 33,000. But then bank next door is using an agency. They've done a fantastic deal with Reed Accountancy or something, and getting 10% fee for hires. And so they're paying £3,000, and that's what they're calculating as their cost per hire. So who's right? Is it 33,000 or is it 3,000? So we have to standardise it, and cost per hire will come out of these numbers. I'm convinced we will have a cost per hire at some point. But we need to work really hard to standardise the data, otherwise it's meaningless. But just think how powerful this would be when you're sat there saying that here's our measures, this is how the recruitment team in this company is performing, and you get challenged. Well, what's it like in the rest of the industry? And you can go and talk to your colleagues in your sector and get their data in the same way. And you can say, we are top 10 percentile, we're bottom 10, I need more resources, and this is why. So this, I think for the first time, we will have the tools that will enable us to argue back to the finance and the board in a way that they understand. Now, you mentioned finance. Most finance directors, finance managers have qualified in accountancy. And accountancy has standardized metrics. So if you go to evaluate the value of a company, the way you calculate that value of that company is the same here as it is in America, as it is in Australia, it is in India. And you start looking at earnings before tax, or cost of acquisitions, or cost of sales. These are all defined in a consistent way so that anybody in any company worldwide gets the same number. So when we start talking their language, we must standardize our data, because they've standardized theirs. So that's why we've decided that this is the right time to have a real go at doing this. Does that answer the cost per sales?
Any other questions?
Lisa. So I saw Lisa's first.
Sorry.
So.
So what we're doing with the data set is we're taking, if those internal hires are facilitated through TA, that is then included in the data set. This is professional hiring. We're not going to be doing entry level, so your apprenticeships, etc., etc. It's professional hiring, and anything that is facilitated through the TA function. Yep.
Yeah.
So what you'll be able to see, for example, is you'll be able to see your first 12-month attrition by source. One of those sources will be internal hire. Because a lot of the time in organisations, internal hiring is great, right? But we make them loads and loads of promises. That doesn't happen, and they leave anyway. So, yeah, we're going to break it down. One of our sources is internal hire, and we can start to really look at that and the value of that, and then see how those individuals are performing. And also, we're going to be not just looking at, we're going to be breaking internal talent down into diverse internal talent. So we'll look at diversity, but we'll also then look at internal diverse talent, i.e. you're taking all that effort to bring these diverse colleagues in. Are we then giving those individuals the opportunity within the organisation to grow?
Yep. Yeah. So one of the assumptions we've made is that this hasn't happened before, because it's such a huge topic, and so we are focusing on perm, not contract, that the roles impacted by the TA team. As we grow, if this is successful, and we are convinced it's going to be, then over the next couple of years we can see this widening out to include other. Yeah, but at the moment we've got to chew and swallow what we're bitten off, and it feels big already.
So we're going to start with vacancy data. Now, the analogy I always use, anyone done a cocktail party at home? No one. Okay. So when you do a cocktail party at home, what you want to do is you want to buy the minimum amount of bottles and spirits to make the maximum amount of cocktails with the least amount left over, i.e. you don't want that whole bottom drawer of a cupboard filled full of the weird-looking spirits that make one cocktail. That's the analogy that we use with data. How can we take the minimum amount of data points and give you guys the maximum amount of value, but then also making sure that those hopefully are standard data points that make sense to you. Once we've done vacancy data, we can then go and do candidate data. So I mean, using City as an example, we're doing 10,000 hires a month, 100,000 plus annual hires. We had 7 million applicants. For us to start with that size data set to do this project would be hard work. So what we want to do is we want to get your organisations used to giving data. We want to get you guys used to understanding the data sets, because ultimately, when you present data, or if you give data to a stakeholder, they're not going to use it unless they're really confident, because they're not going to put themselves at risk. So yeah, we're going to hopefully start simple and move forward from there. But next question. Yeah, what we're really keen to do is to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples. So quality of hire is a really interesting topic. I could talk about it for hours. Anyone who says to me, I want to measure quality of hire, the first thing I say is we need to measure the quality of your hiring managers. I can put an amazing hire into a rubbish hiring manager. We all know, right? That certain hiring manager calls a TA team, and the first thing is, oh my God, here we go again. Secondly, you've got other hiring managers who are amazing, right? You can give them average talent, and they just turn out absolutely brilliant individuals. So once again, that will create a level of complexity. Once we've got the basics, we can then start to build. We can start to build in there. But the key thing we want to do is to start with the basics, and we want to make sure that we're using validated data. So when you turn around to your CEO or your HRO and they go, we're taking six of your headcount to pay for that technology, you can go, that's great, but this is the effect it's going to have on us as a business, and this is the effect it's going to have on your bottom line as a business. Any other questions?
Okay. We have a leadership team, myself and Jeremy, and a couple of people from the RL 100, from the recruitment events company, to help us coordinate. But the most important element of this is the steering group, which will be using to test these definitions to see if organisations can respond simply with the minimum amount of data on a regular basis, so that we can start feeding back standardised, benchmarkable data. So we've had, I didn't have time to add, we've had another couple of organisations agree to join yesterday. If you think your organisation is interested in taking part, come and let me know. We need to speak to either yourself if you're the TA leader, or speak to your TA leader about being part of this and getting those organisations signed up. As I say, we'll be doing this over the next 6 months or so to get to the point where we can start receiving and giving back that benchmarkable data, but also to start engaging wider industry and government around having standard measures for the TA industry, just like the accountancy profession has.
And the final thing I'm going to add is we're not just going to give you guys data, we're going to give you context around it as well. So initially, we're going to be the platform's going to be built on Azure. Microsoft Azure from a data security perspective. We're going to be using Power BI for your visualizations. Initially, they'll be static. What we're then going to move to is a platform where you can log in and you can start to cut your data set, i.e. you want to look at a certain country by a certain sector, by a certain XYZ. So once again, we become more and more of an interactive tool to hopefully add value to you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming so early in the morning. Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you all.